Hey, everybody, we are back with episode 2 for this week. I'm glad that you guys are here with us. All right, Josh, go ahead.
Continuing on my movies that terrified me as a child, I'm talking about 1997's Volcano. Uh, Another really good cast: Tommy Lee Jones, Anne Hatch, Don Cheadle, Keith David, John Gorbet. A lot of recognizable faces in this one as well. More so than Twister, I think. Probably not as at the time, but like a lot of these actors got bigger since this movie.
Yeah.
So watching it now, it, much bigger cast. Came out a year after Twister. Doesn't look as good, and this is not a very effective movie. I was talking about Twister being very effective, and it's making you feel tension.
Yeah.
This one's not.
Okay, why? I've seen this once, but I don't remember it very well.
So in Twister, you've got another slow moving, relatively slow moving thing
Yeah.
that you're running away from. This is a volcano that pops up out of nowhere with zero tension in it. And it is still a slow moving thing.
Also, just feels boring.
Yeah. So the first thing is they're fighting, they're trying, the first like third of the movie is them finding out that there's a volcano in the first place. Even
Hmm.
though people are mysteriously dying of or getting these burns. And they're like, oh, it's probably a steam vent. And there's even a scene where the main guy goes, a steam vent from what? They shut down all the power and electricity and water in this area. And they're like, I don't know.
And they just don't look into it at all.
They just move on.
It's so dumb.
And so the lava finally shows up and it gets on the surface and they're everybody's freaking out and shooting lava into the sky and burning things down. And they're like, oh no, what are we gonna do? It's heading for the black community. What are we gonna do? And they decide that they're gonna build a barrier and then they're gonna drop water on it to make the lava harden to make it dam up against itself, which is a real volcano strategy. And they address it in the show. They say, this is what Iceland did. Maybe it'll work for us too. Is instead of doing a little bit of water constantly, we're going to do a lot of water all at once, and hopefully it cools it enough to harden, and then
Yep.
creates its own barrier so it doesn't get to that community.
Pulls the
Um,
Avatar, the Last
yeah,
Airbender thing.
yeah. The problem is these people act like they've never heard of lava before. There are a number of scenes where this actor's like, whatever it's called, and the lava expert is like, it's called lava, and she's like, and then Tommy Lee Jones is like, yeah, lava, I guess. I'm like,
That's
okay, I'm sorry, I know that like I didn't necessarily grow up with the same childhood as Tommy Lee Jones, as he's like 60 years older than me.
but he
But
would know
it's
what
not
lava
like
was.
the idea of tectonic plates is that new.
And even if you didn't know that, you know what lava is. You might
Yeah,
not even know like the difference between magma and lava. I think there's a lot of normal people who wouldn't, but you would know lava. That's that stuff.
yeah. Uh, so just the stupidity around it, like they didn't know what a volcano was called.
That's so bad. That's so dumb.
Yeah. And like they have the scenes with the news reporters that are like, we've never heard of this stuff before. We're going to have to call in an expert. And you're like, okay, so Hawaii is just not a place in 1997? Yellowstone, never heard of it.
Never
What
heard
is
of
that place?
Yellowstone.
Yep. If it doesn't exist in LA, I've never heard of it before. Ever. Is what they act like. And so just like the level of stupidity is ridiculous. Like comments that come from that stupidity also ridiculous. Uh,
Is it? Is there any level of this is stupid fun? Like a movie that's
no,
enjoyable because it's dumb? No. Okay.
no.
Okay.
You can tell that they were trying to be intense. They were trying to bring the intensity of the unknown thing that is lava popping up in the middle of the city, right? A volcano growing in the middle of the city
Yeah.
spontaneously, right? Like that's a terrifying
Absolutely.
premise, right? Um, even though in reality it would take like millions of years for that volcano to form. But anyway, uh, like the premise of it, of this volcano spontaneously deciding to upshoot and become a volcano, uh, they were trying to make it kind of like Twister. It was supposed to be another like natural disaster fear movie, intense movie, um, and they just failed. They just failed. It was not
It's just bad.
intense. The writing sucked. The they didn't bring the intensity. There was a scene where they were starting to fight the next thing of lava because, oh, even though we stopped it from getting from the Black Town, it's not like the lava didn't go anywhere else, so it's going somewhere else. Where is it going? Oh my gosh, it's going through the subway system. And then as a logical person, I'm like, well, why wasn't it going through the subway system before the surface since the subway system's below the surface? Anyway, so it's following the subway system and it's going to outlet, and they need to connect the subway system to the canal system so that the lava drains into the ocean. That's their big plan. But downhill is the hospital where they have been sending everybody to. And so they need to blow up a building to act as a barrier so that the lava goes the other way instead. Um, and there's supposed to be this really intense scene where an earthquake happens because of this volcano, and it causes something to fall on this cop. And so there's these two cops still trapped in the building, and there's supposed to be this big intensity because the person who's pressing the button is like, "Are we clear? Are we clear?" And they're not responding. "Are we clear? Are we clear? We need to know. Are we clear?" And they're just sitting there making eye contact with each other, like, "What are we gonna do?" And the one's like, "Get out of here! You can still make it. You're not trapped under this thing." And the guy's like, "No, we'll stay here together." And then he says, "All clear, Captain." You're like, "What an idiot! What a freaking moron!" That makes no logical sense whatsoever. It makes no sense at all. And so they blow this building. And the building starts to blow up. And then Tommy Lee Jones looks across the street and sees his daughter is standing there. It's not actually clear. She went through some back alley somehow and popped out right where this building was going to fall. So he outruns the building. And just as the building comes crashing down onto the spot where they were standing, Tommy Lee Jones is able to push them to safety. And the final scene is them. Everybody's looking for Tommy Lee Jones' character. They're like, is he alive? He came up with this magnificent plan that saved us all. Where is he? Where is he? Everywhere. And he pushes his way out of the rocks. And then the main love interest gives him the look. And then he gives them the, and that's how the movie ends. And you're like,
That's terrible.
that is the
That's terrible.
stupidest thing. There's no way. Like, this is worse than the like Godzilla -1 scene where he blows up the thing, and you're like, okay, that thing was wiping out buildings. There's no way pushing him saved him, and there's no way you survived that, right?
Nope.
This is worse because he pushed, right? Boom. So if he was able to push them and they were both able to survive, she was never in danger to begin with.
No, not at all.
Plain
That's
and simple.
ridiculous.
That's the reality. She wasn't in danger. You did nothing. But no, he He pushes his way out of the rock, and it's just stupid. It's just dumb. Like, honestly, the like ideas that they come up with to fight the lava is pretty clever, right? Like,
Mhm.
they decide to like blow up the building to act as a barrier, pretty clever. They decide to blow holes in the street to make the street a canal to connect the subway system to the actual canal system to let it out into the ocean. Pretty clever.
Pretty clever.
But besides that, this has no redeeming qualities. Like,
Have you seen Dante's Peak?
no.
Okay. I would be interested in you watching that and doing a comparison. Dante's Peak is also ridiculous, but it sounds maybe better than this movie. Even though there's ridiculous part, there's one part in Dante's Peak where the grandma is trying to save her grandchildren, and the river has turned to acid, and so she's like, their ore melts off, and they're like, we're not gonna make it to shore. And this acid that like eats anything in a second, the grandma hops out of the boat and is pushing them to shore, and it is absolutely asinine. But it is a pretty entertaining show, and I'd be interested in your comparison.
It's gonna be hard because like we talked about Twister last episode,
Yeah,
and I'm like, hey, it was an enjoyable show. Like,
hmm,
I get it. I watched Volcano, and I'm like, I have no idea why that terrified me at all.
because it's so stupid.
It's so stupid. It is so unbelievably stupid. Visually, the like effects are worse than Twister. It came out a year after, so
And it's worse.
relatively simultaneous, possibly better technology, and it's worse. And like,
That's too
there's
bad.
stupid qualities to it. Like, they got lava wrong. Like, how lava actually works, they got it wrong. And like, I can chalk that up to being a 25-year-old movie at this point, 28
Yeah.
year old movie at this point, because this is stuff I've always known about lava, but that doesn't necessarily mean they did at that time, I guess. I mean, 1997, I was one. So maybe we've learned this stuff since.
Hey, Twister
I
had a
don't know.
$2 million budget higher than Volcano. That $2 million went straight into effects.
I guess so, because, like, Twister is 1996. It's as old as I am, and, like, it looks fine.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
looks
it
fine.
looks
I
pretty good.
buy that that's a tornado. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Volcano's lava does not look like lava.
It just
I
looks
don't
like
buy its
trash.
lava. It just looks like crap. And, like, so one of the things that they got wrong about lava is that it's
Mhm.
a liquid. So, like, there's a scene where this guy is on the subway. The lava's coming up the subway tube.
Mhm.
So, and he has the train driver on his back, and he decides he's going to leap into the lava and throw the driver to safety, right?
Okay.
And so he jumps in it and he starts melting and falling into lava,
Mhm.
right? Do you want to know what actually would have happened if he did that?
What?
He would have stood on top of it.
I thought it was more like a quicksand type substance.
No.
No? Oh,
It
okay.
is
I was
it
wrong on
is
that.
like 12 times more dense than water.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like he
I
would
thought you
have
would.
burned. His shoes would have burned and he would have melted straight through it and he would have burnt. But like physically, he could have taken two steps and
On
probably gotten
top of the
off
lava.
and probably even survived with just severe like
Your
probably
feet would
need
have
like
been like
your feet would have
burnt.
been gone forever. Like
Yeah.
nerve endings, they're gone. Feet gonna be pretty much dysfunctional. But he possibly could have survived that kind of a thing, right? If you're
Interesting.
just talking about that. Now, the
I thought
thing
it was
that
more
I
viscous
was
than that.
mostly bothered by is nowhere does it talk about the toxic fumes that a volcano eruption creates.
which they do talk about in Dante's.
Okay, because they don't talk
They
about it
do
at
talk about
all
that.
in Volcano. And like, I understand them not understanding lava is not really a like liquid in the way you think of liquids. I
Yeah,
understand that. I don't understand not knowing that when a volcano erupts, it spews so much sulfur and chemicals in the air, it suffocates people. So in that scene
me either.
where he's carrying the guy, he's not going to melt into the lava and die. He's going to have suffocated and
Suffocate and
died
die
20 minutes ago
from the fumes.
from the fumes. So it's yeah, that's the one thing I was like, that's how you would have built tension in this movie.
Yeah,
Is
you
not
didn't do
only
it.
is it slow moving and going towards you, it's suffocating anybody who's trying to fight it, but you have to fight it to save the citizens.
Dante's Inferno came out, or Dante's Peak came out the exact same year, so they totally knew about
Well, yeah,
all this
they've
stuff.
known about volcano fumes for a very, very long time. Like, very long time. Thousands of years long time. Um, so that was my one thing is like, not only is this a logical flaw for somebody who knows anything about volcanoes and lava and stuff, but it would fix your movie.
Yeah,
Like having that be a threat and like having the scene where they're trying to get everybody oxygen and this, that, and the other, like that builds the tension of the situation to make it terrifying.
it would have been much, much better. Like, way better.
So it's I don't know. So anyway, I would give Volcano a 3 out of 10, a 3.5 out of 10,
That's pretty
and I
bad.
will not go back to this one. If somebody really was like, "Man, I love this movie. I really want to watch it," I'd say fine, but I'm scrolling through my phone the whole time. I've got no interest in paying this movie attention ever again because it's
Are,
just crap.
so, two things. First, I thought this was interesting, but Bolivia's Uturaku, something like that. It is the fastest growing volcano in the world, and in 9 years, it rose 1,400 feet.
Okay,
That's pretty cool.
cool.
So it's
Yeah, that's
feasible
really
that it
cool.
wouldn't take decades. Like you could have a volcano pop up in a shorter period of time.
Yeah,
Um,
9 years.
9 years, but it's still not a month.
You
All
know
of a
what?
sudden, you
That's
have a
fair.
mountain there.
I give it to the people of LA. If there was a volcano growing, it might take them 9.5 years to decide it might be bad enough to leave.
Oh, that's funny, man. And my other question was: is there any of these natural disaster movies that you really love?
Uh, I mean, the only ones that come to mind are Twister and Volcano. What else is there?
Okay, I like Day After Tomorrow. I actually really enjoy that movie, but that's probably my
I
favorite
haven't
one.
seen it since I was like, that's the one where everything's frozen over.
Yeah, yeah, I
The
like that
only
one a
thing I
lot.
remember is the scene where they're going down to the basement and they have to dive into the frozen water. I don't
Okay,
remember why, but I just remember that that happens. So
you
I
just
can't speak
remember
to
that
that
scene.
movie. Just that scene.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
you
So
should
I think
rewatch
when
it.
I
It's
watched
it's a
it,
good
I
one.
just didn't get it.
Fair
So
enough.
I don't know.
There's people who don't agree with me, but I like that one.
It's a
And that
fairly
one as
big
well.
one. I recognize the name. I like people talk about it frequently enough and stuff. I don't remember it. I was too young for it, but it wasn't terrifying enough to terrify me as a child. I just was bored, I guess.
The other one that I like is San Andreas Fault, but that's because it's absolutely stupid, like to the point of being funny. But it's a stupid movie.
Okay, natural disaster movies. Into the Storm. Haven't seen. The Waves sucked. 2012 was not great. Armageddon is good. Armageddon is one that I
I've
like.
never seen Armageddon.
Oh, it's actually pretty good.
Okay,
Bruce Willis has to go up into space to blow up an asteroid.
that sounds so dumb.
It does sound good, but or it does sound dumb, but that's kind of what it is. Poseidon sucked. I think I've seen The Perfect Storm, but I don't recall. Independence Day.
Is that one natural disaster? I
It's
mean, it's
under. It's on
aliens.
this list.
Okay, that's a good
No,
movie. I
I
wouldn't
wouldn't.
call it natural
I wouldn't
disaster.
call it a national disaster either, but it's on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any I really love.
I actually like Contagion too, if that counts. I wouldn't necessarily call that a natural disaster, but I like that movie.
Yeah, I think 2012 is better than people give it credit for, but still think it sucks.
It's another one that I like because of how stupid it is. It actually makes me laugh. It's a good dumb time.
Does World War Z count?
I don't. Hmm. I mean, if we count Contagion, then yeah, it technically would.
Okay. There's like natural disaster esque movies, like the uh, diver rescuer divers movie. Um,
That one's really good.
yeah,
If it's the one I'm thinking of, like the is it the one where they get stuck in the cave? The kids get stuck in the cave.
I don't know.
Okay, whatever one that one is
What
really
is
good.
that movie called? It starts with a P. I know it starts with a P. It's gonna bother crap out of me. I own it. Uh,
13 Lives is the one I was talking about, and I really like that movie.
I haven't seen that one.
It's
Let me
great.
pull up my Plex because it's gonna bother me.
Yeah, if you haven't seen 13 Lives, you should absolutely watch it. It has Carlton Farrell in it. It has um it has what's his name? Viggo Mortensen. It's a great movie.
I can even picture the main Ash. It's not Ashton Kutcher, is it? The Guardian.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's a great
Yeah.
movie.
I'm glad I got that. Yeah, The Guardian. If we count that, because it's kind of a natural disaster movie, but
It
not.
kind of is.
I mean, it's about the rescuers who go into the natural disaster, or not natural
But
disaster, but disaster.
Disaster, I would count it. I would count that
Okay, if you
movie.
count it, that one's my favorite. I love that movie.
That's a great movie. I
It
haven't
is
watched the
just
movie in a long time.
great. It's
I should
so good.
rewatch that. I should rewatch that. It was a good movie. Cool. All right, Ben. That was a good topic. My next one is Night Agent season 2. And I like Night Agent more than I think you like Night Agent.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed the first season. I really did. There's problems with it. It's not nearly as good as Bodyguard, but I did enjoy that show. I enjoyed season 2. But season 2 has a bunch of stuff where you're like, what the hell are you doing? Part of the show is dealing with a chemical weapon, and they know that this building is rigged to explode with a chemical weapon. And all the police, what do? They run in without any kind of mask or anything on at all. There's no hazmat, there's no nothing. And you're like, what are you doing? Why? Why are you doing this? There's a chemist who is making this chemical weapon, and they're in a shelter where nothing is going to hurt them, but instead of releasing the chemical weapon outside of the shelter so that every one of their captors dies, they just keep making chemical weapons. It's I don't know. I like the actors. I like where they were going with the story, but a lot of the details with season 2 just didn't come together. Um, which is too bad. Still enjoyable. Glad I watched it. Will watch season 3, but it's not as good as season 1. And with you not even liking season 1 that much, I don't even know if I'd recommend it to you. I think you'd probably have a good
Uh,
time, but
I'm not gonna
yeah,
watch it.
I don't know. I don't know. It's not as good as
Uh,
season 1. Season 1 was better.
no. I think that like genre of like action show
Yeah,
is just so hard to get right.
it's super
Because
hard.
with an action movie, you have like, okay, so we need to set up, we need to establish plot, we need to establish characters, we need to introduce universe, XYZ, whatever, right? And then we have to have action for like a solid 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and then we have to have a conclusion. So
Yeah.
action movie is like really easy to relatively to like do. Action show is just so hard because you can't just not have action in an episode, otherwise you have a relatively boring episode. So you have to have suspense or action in some way. So it either gets really repetitive or it's boring, and it's
Or
just
gets
really hard to like
contrived.
walk that line. Like Day of the Jackal, I think is great. Reachers season 1 is great.
It's great.
Uh, what is the
Jack
other one? There's
Ryan and Terminalist.
Terminal List is
Both
great, right?
great.
There's a number of them. Bodyguard is fantastic.
It's phenomenal.
But for every great one, there's like 20 okay ones and like 30 terrible ones. And
Yeah.
it's just like where it's not really my genre. Like I just don't love like the action movies even generally. Um to to be like, here's an okay one and it got worse. It's just not like I'm just like I'm gonna spend my time
You're
somewhere
gonna go
else.
somewhere
It's
else.
like my to watch list is massive already.
So is
Do I
mine.
want to watch something I might just kind of like? No, probably not.
Fair enough. I I'm glad I watched season 2, but it's on the edge. It
Yeah.
is. Season 1 I genuinely wish I'm glad I watched that show. It's not Terminal List, it's not Bodyguard, it's not that level, but it is I had a very good time with it.
Yeah, I think it falls in the 20, right?
Yeah.
Right? Where it's okay, where you can be like, man, if this might hit someone's niche and they might love it. But other than that, most people are just gonna be like, this is okay, this is pretty good.
It was pretty
Not
good
really my
little
thing, whatever.
action
Right?
show.
That's kind of where I fall, where I was like, oh, it's pretty good. I don't hate that I watched it. I don't wish I didn't watch it, but it wasn't that like action thriller exciting thing where I was just so excited for season 2 to come out. Like I forgot about this show.
You did.
Yeah, you
I
just
wasn't
brought it
to
up.
that
I'm like,
level.
I remember that I was okay with this show, but quiz me on the plot of this season 1, and I will get none of it right because I don't remember it. I remember the cover and that I didn't really love it very much,
But that was it.
but that's pretty much it. I might, if I really like looked into it, I'll be okay. I remember the main things, but
But that's about it. All right.
yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely season 2 is not worth watching then because it's not. I can't be like it's better than season 1. Give it a shot. No, it's not. It's not.
yeah,
Season 1, I was like, there's a few little plot holes there, but I enjoy the show and I'm okay with the plot holes. Like it's fine. I'll forgive them. Not a big deal. Some of these ones I was like, no cop is going to do that. And so there's a part at the end of the show where they're busting into the building and they have everyone there. Like they're in the middle of New York City and this is a chemical weapon, major threat. They have everybody going into this building. And I'm like, you have the entire building rigged up to let this chemical weapon go, and you're waiting for the UN to gather when they know you have a chemical weapon there, no one's going to this building until this is dispelled. You're not going to get anybody. You have every one of your enemies inside this building. Just press the button and release all the chemicals, and they're all dead. Everybody's dead, and you win. Just press the button. And the way that they solve it is they start a fire in the HVAC system at the top. And because it senses a fire, it closes off the HVAC, which might be a real thing. I actually didn't look. But even if it is a real thing, it's not going to seal the HVAC so well that there's no leaking. And this is a chemical weapon that it showed a vial this big will melt your face off. And they're just standing there hugging like, oh, we made it. We saved everybody. No, while you were hugging, your face would melt off and you would die.
So the way those systems work is by suffocating, right? So they would actually seal extremely well. Because if they didn't,
like airtight, full seal?
Yeah. Because if it didn't, oxygen would seep back through and the fire would continue.
Okay.
Right. So the way they do it is basically creating a vacuum inside the space. Right. So normally there are two phases, right? So the phase one of them is they seal the air, so nothing is getting in or out, no air is getting in or out, and then they drop a chemical that basically bonds with
the smoke,
oxygen.
Okay.
Yep. So, I mean, at my last warehouse job, they had this kind of fire suppression system that basically, if this was deployed and you were within, I think it's like 10 feet of it, it would suck the oxygen out of you.
Wow.
That's how powerful this chemical, it's called foam. This foam is with bonding with oxygen. So
that's really interesting.
So that's how those fire suppression systems usually work.
I didn't know it was that good of a seal. I figured it wouldn't be.
Yeah. Oh, it's a big deal.
That's cool.
If you're working in an industry where you're dealing with highly flammable chemicals, you basically have to have a storage system with this fire suppression system in place, to where you don't let it get beyond just one barrel, because if so, it's a highly flammable where it's highly flammable and pressurized in those metal barrels. So you basically have a bunch of 100-kilogram bombs really close together. So it's very sophisticated. These fire suppression systems do work. They're also very big in museums because you want to protect the art, and like bank vaults and stuff like that. So you've actually seen it in white collar where they have the vacuum suck out the oxygen. That's the like consumer version of this stuff where they just don't have the foam.
Very cool. I didn't know it was that good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, those ones also work differently. So like in white collar, those ones generally, to my understanding, is they just continually suck air out. They don't seal. They basically just vacuum all the air out. So that's how you starve it of oxygen.
But these other systems completely seal, so they can actually deprive it of oxygen completely.
Yep.
Deprive
and
the
then
area.
Drop the foam down so that it binds with the remaining oxygen in the room.
Very cool. Very cool. I didn't know that.
Interesting. But yeah, you are still absolutely right. If you're still in the building in this scenario, and it's still like the chemical is released,
you leave.
And I'm picturing you're sealed in the building with the chemical still. And yeah, you protected everybody else, but if that chemical's released, you still got oxygen, you're still breathing. So whatever this chemical is, you're still gonna die.
Yeah.
So you're still right in your criticism, but just inform you, yes, that kind of fire suppression system does exist.
Very cool. I thought they over-exaggerated it. All right. Well, yeah, that's my my viewing of that show. What is your next one, man?
The Gorge. This is continuing on my watched horror stuff because you recommended it. Kind of fit in with the the Twister, Volcano, then I watched the Gorge kind of thing.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, you are absolutely right about the on-screen chemistry.
It's
I would
fantastic.
I would love to watch a rom-com with those two. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Rom-com, them on the cover. I'll go watch
I
it.
will watch it.
I may not
Yep.
love it, but I'll watch that.
Me
I
too.
mean,
Like instantly.
they were so good on screen together. They were so good on screen together. It makes you not care about all the issues that this movie has.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And there are a lot of issues. I have a lot of plot issues with this movie.
Okay. Tell me.
The ziplining thing is an obvious idea. So
Yes,
the
it is.
fact that the one guy is like, there's no way to get over there, so don't waste your time. Like, okay, what about a zipline across the middle? Duh. What about, like, flying over?
Or
You
hiking
know?
around because we see that there's that waterfall
No,
at
he
the end. He
ruled
can
it
just
out. So
walk over that.
he did rule the hiking out because of all the mines and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So he ruled out hiking. I mean, that wouldn't go on forever, so I guess you could hike far enough, I guess. But, like, there was an explanation for not walking around the gorge. Right? The only way would be across it. And, like, you've got really powerful drones that could just lift you up and take you over there that you control. And by the way, nobody can find out because there's no signal going in or out of this place except for that one radio signal every 30 days.
Yeah, and the weird thing with the computer, which I found a little ridiculous.
So there's no signal, but there's a signal coming out of the computer that's in the basement of the gorge.
Of the gorge where everything's rotten, and it's a computer that looks like it came from the 90s.
They
Okay.
address that. The computer is from the 2000s. So they straight up address that in the movie. Uh, there's other things. There's even people from the 2000s. So, like, they established that people came into the gorge
Yeah.
later than what was let on. So there's not really a
Yeah.
plot hole there, is my point.
Yeah.
The winch that they use to get out of there is a plot hole because guess what? There's automatic turrets at the top set to shoot at anything that moves. So yeah, you might get off the ground, but how are you going to get past your turrets and your mines and everything else?
That's there ready to kill you and kill you and kill you and kill you again. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Why would Black whatever not have cameras monitoring this thing? Because if it's that big of an investment, I understand not wanting a physical signal getting out of there, but I'm going to introduce the makers of this movie to this crazy thing called wire. And if you ran a wire, I know it would run a long way, but if you were to, like, take Ethernet and run it 10 miles down the road, you could take the data from 10 miles down the road and it wouldn't actually be showing coming from this area. The movie comes to an end, and their big plot to fix this situation is to blow up the cloaking technology so the rest of the world is going to see the gorge. But then they blow it up with a nuke.
I know.
So you basically
so
created
the
a
ending
reason
is
for
so
this thing to
dumb.
exist.
Yep.
The fact that the, like,
And the big boss lady just
the big
happens
boss
to
later
come.
just happens to be there during that time. I actually
Yeah.
buy her being there, but
Oh, I didn't at all. Not even a little.
I was bothered that they killed her with the nuke, and the fact that they had to have her say, "Don't worry about flying up, just fly away," as they flew into the gorge and out in a helicopter, which doesn't need to go down to go up like a plane does, was just stupid because it's the only way they could make an excuse for her to be blown up by this thing. Because if they had just gone at an angle like a helicopter's perfectly capable of doing it. It can travel just as far this way. It's not. There's no takeaway from them going this way versus this way. They can go just
Nope.
as fast. So they would have gotten away with it, but they can't do that because then she would be alive at the end. Uh, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I was like, cool, they destroyed the cloaking thing. So Google Earth is going to see this thing. Governments are going to see this thing. They're going to investigate. She's going to go to
That's what I
jail.
thought
Then
too.
they were like, and nuke.
Yeah, I thought they weren't
They're
going to
like,
go with the
okay, so a
obvious nuke
nuke went off.
option.
So there's a reason for a hole in the ground to be there.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to look twice at it now. Nobody.
Nope.
Everybody's going to be like, where'd that nuke come from? That's awful weird. And then Black whatever company would just be like, oh, we were testing. It's an uninhabited area. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
Be like, okay.
And you have two snipers that are expert snipers and one helicopter. And you couldn't shoot down the helicopter?
Yeah. And they're running away and they just leave the snipers behind.
Yeah.
As your only defense is this sniper rifle to go
Well, we're
through
going to
the
leave it.
woods, and you're going to need to hunt to survive for at least a few days till you get to civilization again, and you're just like,
Yeah.
I blew up the cloaking technology, so we're good.
Yep.
The monsters don't make any sense.
Okay, I didn't have a problem with the monsters. I just kind of accepted it. I liked the monsters.
So there's the scene where they take her, right?
Yeah.
They take Anya Joy Taylor
Mhm.
and they string her up and they establish that these are not just monsters, they're intelligent beings.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Conlon. What was their motivation in doing that?
I have no idea. No clue. I don't know.
Me neither. I was waiting for them to be wanting her to set off the nuke because they don't want to live this life.
That would have been interesting.
That's what I thought it was leading to, genuinely. I was like, okay, so it's at the silo. That's where they went. They've strung her up. They're trying to get her to set this nuke off because they can't.
I'm trying to communicate in some different way.
But they didn't. They just did. They were just there.
Just hung her up for no real reason.
They're intelligent enough to set this super elaborate trap where they opened the door, they grabbed the bag, they set the bag, they set the trap around the bag so when it moved, they knew to take off with their horse. But they're intelligent enough to tie the knots and string her up to where she would be trapped and have no way to get out. And
but not intelligent enough to display a message of some kind. Yeah, fair enough.
you're not intelligent enough to communicate why you're doing what you're doing. Are you trying to escape? Are you trying to make her kill you? Or what are you
Are you
doing?
saving to eat her later? Like, what's the purpose? I didn't worry about what their goals were, and I was totally fine with it. But what you're saying is fair.
I mean, characters have motivations.
Yeah,
Monsters don't necessarily have to have motivations,
but it shows they're intelligent enough to have motivations.
but that you establish that they're intelligent, so you need to establish motivation for it to be like. If the motivation was to make her one of them, right? They establish that they're going to sacrifice her to become part of this intelligent goo thing with all those souls, and that when they're escaping from the orange things, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want to make her be part of that. Great, makes sense. For some reason, that's important to them. That's what they want to do. They want to have as many people in there as possible. I buy that. Why are you stringing her up? Why are you going through this process to do that?
Yeah, and it could be just you're trying to infect another person and add them to the flock, which they do kind of say that the disease spreads, and maybe that's a possibility, but you don't know.
The disease can spread. It doesn't always spread.
Yeah, I thought they were going to actually have it spread when she gets hit with the shrapnel in her chest. I thought that's where they were going, but they didn't do that.
Yeah, I don't know. So the monsters were a problem for me. The political intrigue part of the movie didn't make sense to me.
It's the worst part of the
The
movie.
antagonist of the movie didn't make sense to me, and I really hated how they took her out because it was impersonal accident. Uh, with her flying into the gorge after knowing that a nuke is about to go off and they need to get away as fast as possible. Uh, it was kind of predictable with them killing the first sniper guy that, the black guy. They're like, we need to confirm your identity. I'm like, they're going to kill him.
Yeah, it
In
was
fact,
very.
when he's headed there and they like get his stuff,
Hmm?
I'm like, oh, they're going to kill the other guy. The way they're establishing this is they're not taking any chance with any knowledge, so they're gonna kill whoever comes out of this anyway. And then they did, and I was like, wow, who could have seen that coming? Bet that guy could have if he had thought about it for 2 seconds. uh, there's the scene where she discovers the quotes on the wall,
Yeah. Or he
and
discovers the quotes on the wall.
no, when she does. When
Okay.
he does it, it's interesting.
Okay.
When the antagonist does it, it doesn't make any sense. Why does she care?
I don't know. I wondered that too.
Why is she upset that they passed one-liner quotes down generation to generation of these people you clearly murdered?
It wouldn't matter to her at all.
It was clearly before they were murdered, so like none of them are like, you're never getting out of this place. They're all like, I like this poem. Here's my one-liner quote.
Here's
Here's
an
my quote.
inspirational thing
Here's my
for you.
inspirational thing. And she finds it. She's like, what is that? How dare they? And you're like, what?
Why do you
Why do you
care?
care? The book of poetry that this came from is on that shelf. It's visually it looked good. I think as a whole, Pirates of the Caribbean looks better, but there were specific scenes when the snake was crawling through, and you saw it in the arm. I was like, oh, that's cool.
It was very cool.
It was very well done.
The spider skull things are creepy as hell. I really liked the tree. I thought the tree was very impressive.
The tree was really good until he fell out of the tree. That looked pretty terrible.
Oh, I was talking about when he's on the ground and it's like eating him. I thought that looked fantastic.
Oh, I thought that looked super dumb.
Oh,
I mean, I was hyped. I was really looking at the teeth. That was what my focus was drawn to. And I was like, they clearly 3D printed that. Oh. That is clearly plastic. That is not terrifying to me at all. I know what they're going for, but they're a failure to me.
I thought it was very effective. I really liked the tree. I liked the goop and how it was like absorbing his body, and I liked I liked the tree a lot.
The goop was really good. I like when he was hanging. I think the centipede thing was fantastic.
Great.
That was great. And then he fell out of the tree, and I was like, oh, the goop stuff is kind of cool, but I don't really care about those teeth and the fact that it's swallowing him. And I don't know about that. And anyway,
I liked it, and it got a good creep factor. I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I thought visually I thought it looked really good. I thought it was great, and even like there were some things like that. Like I thought the part where he winches up the cliffside, I was like, that is really cool. I don't think any of this would work, and it's ridiculous, but that's also really cool. And I just enjoyed it. It just had fun, even though it was dumb. The parts that I didn't like were mostly the end and the political intrigue type stuff, because I thought that was an utter failure. Like, really bad.
So I remember I asked you, I don't remember what your answers were. I asked you to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 as a horror movie. What was your rating then? My
horror movie was an 8. I thought it was very effective as a horror movie. I thought the romance aspect was like an 8.5. I loved the romance aspect of this movie. And then the political intrigue type stuff in the very ending is not very good. Like, it's bad. but I think it has a
Is
six.
your
Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you. Sorry, my phone's ringing.
Oh,
I was wondering what it was.
okay.
You're good. I'll cut this. Continue.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, I overall really enjoyed the movie because I liked the horror aspect and the romance aspect a lot. Even though the ending is real rough. Like really rough. What did you think?
I think as a romance, it's it's an 8 out of 10, to be
Okay.
honest. Like I would love to say it should be lower because there's not a lot of establishing. They kind of just go from meeting to romance pretty
Yeah,
quick.
that's fair.
Uh, but the on-screen chemistry is very good.
It's
Uh,
very good.
Even though there's no talking, they do a very good job with not making it feel quiet and uncomfortable. Uh, so as a romance, it's an 8 out of 10 because it's genuinely really good. Them running away together. It really bothered me that like they set up this meeting point and he never shows up, and he shows up apparently like months later and is just like, sorry, I got injured at my last job. Like months? You let months go by without contacting her?
Yeah, I thought it was stupid too. I don't think the ending is good, and
Yeah.
I thought it would have been better if he never showed up. I would have liked that better.
Yeah, if he had died,
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. But the
which
fact that he should have shown up at their meeting point. Maybe he was limping. Sure.
yeah,
But having him wait to get fully healed to then show up at her job she's clearly had for quite a while,
is
and
dumb.
then she just lets it go. Come on. And like I can tell you exactly what the inspiration for that scene was because it's a direct shot for shot ripoff.
What? I was actually trying to figure
Born.
that out. Oh, yeah, you're right.
The ending of Born, the first one.
Yep.
She's in the coffee shop, she's working, and he just shows up and is like, where do I get a moped around here? I was watching that and I was like, I love Born and I love this scene in Born, but this is terrible. Uh,
Yep.
anyway, as a romance, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. It's fantastic. The chemistry's great. As a horror movie, it's a 4 out of 10.
It's that. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it has
Okay.
certain moments. Like I said, that centipede when he's stuck in the tree is
It's
a
great.
truly terrifying scene.
Yes. Absolutely.
But everything else that's supposed to be terrifying is not that terrifying and is not that suspenseful.
The spiders didn't creep you the hell out.
It was a clever idea, and I don't like spiders, but it wasn't like I was terrified or uncomfortable at the situation or thought that they were trapped and couldn't get out. Like I had no suspense in that moment. I was like, they're gonna deal with this.
I knew that they could get out, but I still found that creepy. I really like the atmosphere of this world that they've jumped into in like the 1930s, 40s feel. I liked the swordmen, and they just had this creepy wraith like quality to them. I just the atmosphere, the creature design, all of those aspects, I thought came together
But it was an
extremely well.
action movie. I agree with you. There was, but it was an action movie. It wasn't a
Yeah,
horror movie. It was an action scene.
can't you can have an action horror movie. Like I
You
think
can,
that's
but this isn't
relevant.
what that was. And like where we're partitioning it up, right? We're saying this is a
Yeah,
horror scene.
yeah.
This is a action scene. That is an action scene. It's not a horror scene to me at all. It was completely an action scene.
Okay, that's
Yeah. Like I agree. Visually it was very cool. I really liked the horseman and the sword, but it wasn't like horror, creepy, or anything. It was just it was an action scene.
Okay. I
Like,
guess I would rate it as a horror action scene if we're gonna break it down that much. But as that, I thought it was very effective. Like
no, I don't think
I
so.
like
Like,
Aliens obviously much more than you do. I really enjoy that movie, and that largely is a horror action movie. But I still think rate it as a very high horror, even though it's not. You're not. It's not your Woman in Black. It's not the original Alien. It's not. It's not
I
that
know,
type of a
but
horror
it's
movie.
still like you could break it down scene by scene and say this is an action scene, this is a horror scene,
Okay.
right? Um, and to me, most of this is like action scene in kind of creepy place, but it's an
Okay.
action scene, right?
Instead of
And
horror scene with
yeah,
action included.
yeah. And
Fair
to
enough.
be
Fair
fair,
enough.
I don't think it would take much to make it a horror scene. It's just what it would take would be toning down the brightness of the scene, having it be actually like super dark with all the creepy environment around them totally changes the tone.
It would have. That's fair.
But it's bright, it's daytime. Yeah, they can't really see the tree horseman guy
It fades
because he's
into the
hiding in the
smoke and
smoke, but it's not
fog.
like anyway, that's how I felt about it. Other
Fair
people
enough.
could feel it differently. That's totally fine. Um, I just think that there was a couple of really good horror sequences,
Okay.
but largely when they tried to do horror, like when the thing reaches up over the ledge, like that was clearly supposed to be a jump scare.
Yes.
Yawn, super big yawn for me. Like,
But I agree that that part is just your typical horror movie. But I think the part where they're clearing out the gorge for the first time and the creatures are climbing up it and they're shooting everything, I would call that horror. It is action, but I would call that horror. And I think
I
it's an
agree.
effective aspect of. Okay, you do. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. When they're crawling the wall, yeah, that's
yeah,
a horror scene.
okay, okay,
Yeah,
yeah. I found enough of it effective that I really just enjoyed the horror aspect of the movie, like
yeah.
a lot actually.
I maybe it was just my expectations on how you sold it, but when I was watching it, I was like, this didn't really hit horror for me.
Okay,
Like I said, I think the tree scene is the exception. I think that is the best horror part with the centipede.
I would agree. I would agree.
Like that is the best horror sequence of it. But once you get beyond that point, they're together, they're armed, they can easily fight back, they have
They're
infinite
clearing out
ammo,
everything.
they're clearing out, they've got clear goals, they're not cornered
That's
ever, they're not trapped ever, it's never dark.
that's something that I wish they would have addressed is the ammo aspect because they're going through a lot of ammo and adding a little bit of a survivalist Resident Evil feel to it would have been an improvement.
Yeah,
That would have been better.
yeah. Um, as a political thriller, I think it's a 2 out of 10. I think it failed all along the border on that aspect.
I agree with that.
Overall, I'm gonna put this as a 6.5 out of 10. It's in
Okay,
that
so you'd
portion
be
where I'm
right
like,
along the line with most other people.
I'm happy I watched it. If somebody said, should I watch it? I would say, yeah, sure, go for it. I enjoyed watching it. It's
Mhm.
enjoyable enough. But the enjoyable part to me was the romance, and there just wasn't enough of it. I would have
Okay,
preferred watching 2.5 hours of them sending signs to each other and goofing off and shooting the walls occasionally because of the zombie things than what I actually got.
so you would have improved. It would have been better for you if it was like a romantic comedy and they were literally like getting bored, so they're just like shooting zombies off the wall and make it
Yeah,
more of a horror comedy instead of a serious tonal horror.
yeah. Like them going into the gorge didn't really add anything.
So I mean, they could have changed it completely to make it so they're going into the gorge just to hunt these things and prove who's better, and make it more of
Yeah,
a horror comedy aspect.
yeah. Have a shoot off from their towers into the gorge.
That could have been cool. I would have been
Yeah,
down for that. For real,
I would have been.
that would have been good.
Yeah, but all this to say, like, I'm not mad at the choices that they made. Um, I don't think that they had bad ideas. I kind of feel like it was whatever we were talking about before, where they just had too many good ideas to fit. I think, you know, I think the political intrigue stuff that they had was pretty good. They just didn't use the screen time to establish it to make the payoff worth it. And then they ultimately undermined themselves with the nuke.
I think they ultimately undermined themselves with the nuke, and I think that they would have required a lot more time. Like if you had made this a TV show, I think you could have built up the political
Yeah,
intrigue. But with the time they had, I don't see anywhere where that was actually going to be good. I just
yeah.
don't.
No, it was unnecessary to
Yeah,
try and include it with the time that they did.
they
They
could have
didn't
just
establish
found out.
enough of what was going on outside the gorge with the antagonist chick to make it worthwhile. You didn't even make her feel that much like a bad guy. So,
They could have just found out that people died when they left this gorge and broken down the things that were making it invisible, the machines that were covering it up, broken those down and left together and created their own identities and not really touched any of that, and that would have been better.
yeah.
They just were leaving it and having somebody find it, make a big explosion so people wonder what the heck is going on. They come explore it,
Set off
like
the sirens.
something. Set up the sirens, yeah, that would work too.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
You
like
don't
there
need
were a
to
lot of
blow
options.
things up, but
You didn't
yeah.
need to kill off the big leader of this organization. You could have just gotten the
And
secret
if they
out.
didn't, you could have set yourself up for a sequel.
Yeah, you could have. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, anyway, I very, very, very much enjoyed this movie, even with the ending being what it is. I very much enjoyed this movie.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm not mad that I watched it. It
Good.
was worth my time. It
Good.
it was never I was never bored. I was never like angry at the choices. I feel like there was just ultimately a lot of missed opportunities. They were trying to do too much, but it was still enjoyable. And the on-screen chemistry between the two is worth the movie for
It's
just
worth
that.
watching the whole movie just for that. Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
All right, guys. With that, that is our episode. We will be back with another one soon. Appreciate you all watching. If you've watched The Gorge, I'd love to know what you think. You guys are awesome. See ya. Bye.